Matt Walsh is just too mean. Too mean. Following Matt Walsh's statements about Dylan Mulvaney, there was a backlash with many classical liberals and politically homeless people being like, whoa, 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 we don't call people eerie, unearthly, weird. That's a step too far. Matt Walsh could get his point across without being so mean. However, I was actually convinced. Probably not convinced to go as far as Matt Walsh may, maybe sometimes even go a little bit further. But Matt Walsh made a really good point, and it's that we need to take away an accepting space for bad people. Now we're seeing a backlash from it. An employee of the Daily Wire is resigning because Matt Walsh was too mean. Christina Buttons wrote an article for Reality's Last Stand. That's I believe it's Colin Wright's Substack. Why I'm leaving the Daily Wire. There's a critical distinction between speaking truth and being tactless, between sticking to the facts and sticking it to the libs. I believe Christina Buttons is incorrect in her assessment of the culture war. Don't really know Christina all too much. Hear good things about her, and I can respect wanting to pass off an olive branch to moderates and politically homeless individuals to convince them to join us in the fight against wokeness, the woke cult, etc. However, Matt Walsh, in my opinion, was not saying to be mean to everyone. He was saying to call out the bad people, the evil, those who would seek to corrupt and spread destruction. There's a big difference between being mean to your average, say, trans person and being mean to a person who is seeking to exploit, corrupt, and destroy. But before I explain why I believe Matt Walsh is actually mostly correct, let me show you what Christina Buttons has to say. And we'll get into this scandal with the Daily Wire. Although I don't really think it's a scandal, it's just an employee quitting. Why I'm leaving the Daily Wire, writes Christina Buttons. After much consideration, I am tendering my resignation from the Daily Wire, the publication to which I dedicated my time and passion as an investigative reporter for the last 6 months. My interest in the transgender debate became all-consuming when I realized that so many of our trusted institutions, the mainstream media, government, academia, civil rights and gay rights organizations, big tech, and the medical establishment were misled on this issue and were misleading the public in turn. As a pro-choice atheist who has consistently voted Democrat throughout my adult life, this realization, as I've written, was nothing short of world-rocking. And you see right there, this is why I want to talk to you about this. Christina, I believe you're incorrect. I do not believe that they were misled. I believe that they are intentionally misleading the public. Hands down. I know this because of through experience. You see, I went the route of let's be nice and just try to inform. And what did they do? They lied about my stance on the issue, resulting in swattings and death threats and bomb threats. People leaving harassing messages and sending emails about things I never said. And I thought to myself, how strange. This polite approach, saying things like, you know, I have no issue with anybody who wants to live their life. We live and let live. But these pedophiles, they're seeping in, and we need to make sure they don't corrupt. So what did they do? They lied and claimed that I and people like James Lindsay were directly attacking all trans people. Well, that's so weird. It's so weird. It made no sense. We have trans people on the show who hang out here. I've done shows. I've gone to events where there are conservative drag queens. I have even offered to put on, for Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, a tremendous drag show with free food and drinks, 21 and up only, of course. It's going to be drag there. You don't want kids coming to that, right? They don't take me up on the offer. I have no problem with drag. Drag's funny. People want to do these shows. They can live how they want to live. If for some reason they kept lying about everything I was saying, hey, they weren't being misled. They are lying on purpose. Now, I don't necessarily blame the average individual who reads the fake news and is tricked, which is why I understand why you don't want to be too mean, but understand that you cannot win this space by constantly deferring to them, for which they then lie. You got to call them out. You got to take that space from them. You got to build culture. Let me read more. When the documentary What is a Woman was released in 2022, I thought it was a brilliant commentary on the state of our culture. Matt Walsh didn't insult his interviewees, but instead let them embarrass themselves. So he says, even my liberal parents loved the movie. I completely agree. I think it was a cultural force, one of the most powerful things Daily Wire's ever done. So when the Daily Wire approached me with the opportunity to write exclusively on transgender issues with an emphasis on pediatric gender medicine, I accepted. There were difficulties working for a decidedly conservative news and media corporation, which I anticipated. For instance, health professionals would not talk to me, much less go on the record, because of their suspicion of right-wing media. Hey, that's weird. But aren't you being nice to them? Aren't you saying, let me be nice? For some reason, they won't talk to you? It's almost like they're lying, and their ideas can't stand up to scrutiny. But I pushed through these inconveniences because I felt that much of the criticism directed at the Daily Wire staff was misguided. Misguided. Yes. Misguided. I remember the first time someone threatened to throw a brick at my face because I asked a simple question, and I said, simply misguided. Then I realized, oh, wait a minute. They're evil. I remember when I was filming outside during Occupy Wall Street, and I had them come to me and say, only film police, never film us. And I said, why? I don't understand. Don't we want to inform the public as to everything that's going on? No. We want to win. Don't film us. And I said, F you, I will film it all because they're evil. They want power and they want people to give them power. And they know they're evil. They know they lie. Not every single person. Let's read more. Their position on transgender issues was sufficiently nuanced, and their editorial standards were and remain high, as referring to the Daily Wire. I was told the Daily Wire stance was that adults could live their lives, etc., etc. But recent videos and posts have weakened my confidence in their commitment to this message. On Valentine's Day, Matt Walsh did a segment on his show about transgender influencer Dylan Mulvaney, that has now been viewed by millions. You are weird and artificial. You are manufactured and lifeless. You are unearthly and eerie. You are some kind of human deepfake. Everyone who looks at you will see something pitiable and bizarre. Walsh has defended these statements as good strategy because he says they rally the conservative base. He adds the goal is not to convince the other side, but to defeat, humiliate, and demoralize his opponents. Matt Walsh is correct. This triggered a race to the bottom, with other social media personas one-upping each other to see who can take more extreme stances. Now, I certainly said Matt Walsh has convinced me to be meaner, but it's only because I had already expressed that this idea is somewhat correct. In that, what the left seeks to do is use violence, threats, and humiliation to gain political power. It works. They have been insulting people on TV forever. They have been firebombing private businesses and smashing windows. They have mercilessly beaten journalists like Andy Ngo on more than one occasion. And the best thing that the right has to offer is, I'm going to be a little bit condescending and mean to these people. And what do you get? Christina, I believe you are incorrect. Christina, you come out and say, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. We must sit idly by as they engage in overt acts of terror, violence, threats, vandalism, bricks in the face, firebombs, and we mustn't counter in any way in terms of the culture war. Here's my view. We want to dominate culture. The Daily Wire is doing a very good job of it. They're expanding and they're gaining lots of views. This is showing young people a path to success in policy and online is not with the left. You will get more views if you reject degeneracy and the cult. Worse still, if you try and do these things, you will be made fun of. Oof, that doesn't feel good, does it? Everyone laughing at you? Matt Walsh isn't making fun of Blair White. Matt Walsh isn't making fun of run-of-the-mill trans people. He's making fun of Dylan Mulvaney specifically, an individual who mocks trans people and women. Hiking heels in the woods? Come on. Christina writes there are transsexuals who are not ideologues, who know they cannot literally identify out of their sex, and who believe that medical transition is a choice for adults, not children. I count some of them as my friends. They're trying to educate the public, etc., etc. Matt Walsh's rhetoric coincided with a sudden deluge of animus towards transsexuals like my friend Blair White simply for being transsexual. However, Matt Walsh was talking specifically about Dylan Mulvaney. I don't see Blair White putting on heels and prancing about the forest and falling over or running around handing tampons to women. Blair White, I think, is fantastic and has done Timcast IRL on numerous occasions and even appeared in our Cast Castle series doing funny jokes. Talking about these issues, being a real person, being relatable, and we understand. And we're friends with Blair. Blair's awesome. I know Blair is also our go-to trans person that we're all friends with. Whenever the issue comes up, everybody's always like, Blair, token trans person. We also had on several others. And there are other individuals, like a drag queen who went to CPAC I forgot the drag queen's name. Drag and trans are two different things, mind you. My point is this. If there are people like Dylan Mulvaney, who I do not believe are trans, and are seeking to corrupt and exploit for personal gain, I think calling them names, calling them out, insulting them, humiliating them is not the worst possible thing in the world, and may very well be effective in certain circumstances. In that, many people are going to go on TikTok, young people. They're going to see Dylan Mulvaney, who I do not believe is a trans person, I believe is a performance artist who is mocking trans people. And then they'll say, this is how we do it. Look at all the millions of views. Here's the problem with it. To the real trans people who are actually trying to just get by and not be attacked or anything, it is Dylan Mulvaney, not Matt Walsh, that is causing the problems. Matt Walsh is saying, you are eerie, people will look at you with pity. Young people, however, will say that's the path towards success. And then you have actual trans people. Now there's going to be someone who looks at Dylan Mulvaney and believes that represents a trans person. It does not. Dylan Mulvaney handing out tampons in bathrooms to women and wearing high heels in the woods is insulting trans people and women. I believe Dylan Mulvaney is a narcissist who wants fame and found fame in this path. Now, some people say, oh, that's ridiculous. Nobody would fake being trans in order to get followers or whatever. Madonna just got plastic surgery. Celebrities get surgery on their faces all the time, changing who they are and their appearances, getting hair plugs and toupees to be someone they are not for fame, for money, for power. Why wouldn't Dylan Mulvaney do that? Why not? I mean, Hollywood is nothing but plastic surgery. People's faces look completely different. Some are really weird looking. And so you think it's different now? Spare me. I don't. Christina goes on to say, many left-wing media outlets deliberately misinterpreted Knowles' claim that transgenderism should be eradicated from public life entirely as a call for eradicating transgender people, and many later corrected their headlines to accurately reflect the quote. A generous interpretation of Knowles' statement is that he wishes to eradicate gender ideology. No, I think what Matt Walsh is saying is that he wants trans people to not go out in public. He wants there to be no public perception. It's a bit of middle. He's not saying kill anybody. He's saying don't let it be publicly or socially acceptable. That is, trans people will be allowed to walk around and do whatever they want, but they won't be on TV, they won't be in movies, and people will always be like, yeah, whatever. The difference now is you have people like Dylan Mulvaney pretending, in my opinion, to be trans for followers. The political right often rails against identity politics and group labels, yet many fail to distinguish between trans people and trans activists. This is not immaterial in my opinion, because we make that argument all the time here at Timcast. An important lesson we've learned from the growing number of detransitioners is that trans identities are not always fixed. Being trans is not innate and biological the same way being gay is. Many are socially influenced to adopt trans identities for a variety of reasons. A number of those who are trans today may detransition tomorrow, and they will need our help. Yes, they absolutely will. And Matt Walsh will welcome them with open arms. And he will say, I'm sorry they did this to you. That's what I was fighting against. The reason why I called out people like Dylan Mulvaney is they seek to use algorithmic influence to harm children for personal gain. Now, I'm not saying Dylan Mulvaney is laughing behind the scenes wanting to harm kids. I'm saying they don't care of the collateral damage that they will make in chasing after followers. She goes on to say, I'm keenly aware of the distinction between factual reporting and opinion, et cetera, et cetera. In light of these concerns, I can no longer in good faith maintain my employment with the Daily Wire. There are many wonderful journalists at the organization, et cetera, et cetera. What now? I'm writing a book. I've illustrated several children's books. Your generous support gives me the opportunity. This is the scandal. I don't think Christina's a bad person. Not at all. Christina's probably a very good person and well-intentioned. Unfortunately, seemingly new to the fight, inexperienced and naive. I've been doing this for over a decade. It's been quite some time since I've been involved in activism and politics since the 2000s. I've worked for many nonprofits. It has been my entire life for over 2 decades. How do I get to the place that I am? Did one day I just start making YouTube videos and say I'm going to talk about all this stuff? No. When I was a kid, I was handed a CD to play. My friend's CD. I wasn't given it. He said, play this music. And I was like, what's this? The Offspring. Whoa. Punk rock music, baby. And then all of a sudden, the classic rock stuff from my family and the hip hop from my neighborhood got backseat. And I'm listening to Americana by The Offspring. I wouldn't call it any kind of real punk rock. Sorry, Offspring. It's pop punk, fine, whatever. And it's got some good songs in it. The Kids Aren't All Right lamented the tragedy of the suburbia collapsing to kids doing drugs and, teenage pregnancies and things like that. Then I started listening to more and more of it. Listening to this music got me more people saying, you should listen to real punk. Then I started listening to other bands. I got into Bad Religion more, skateboarding. Then there's Anti-Flag and bands like that. Then Against Me. And I started listening to all these messages and all this music. And I was like, man, the world is a messed up place. And they just let them get away with it. And so my friends started talking about, getting involved and going to protests. You oppose this, right? I see the music and I get involved in politics more. Always playing music, always getting involved in the politics, and then eventually finding my way to nonprofits to work directly on solving the problem. And boy, did I learn a lot. These activist organizations, these nonprofits, they were lying to people for money. It was crazy to me. They actually encouraged us to lie. I couldn't believe it. So I leave one organization for another. The second organization I worked for weren't so much lying at the time, but it was mismanaged. And it was a weird system. And I decided, I'm leaving. Worked for a friend, worked for another organization, eventually found an organization that was shorting our paychecks. About that. Well, I'm good at math. And so I quickly looked at the paycheck and said the numbers are off. No, don't tell me that I'm wrong. I know for a fact. Oh, we're sorry. Came back, fixed the paycheck. Oops, they didn't really. They still shorted us. And I said, I am not stupid. I am good at math. You're shorting our paychecks. I'm not going to warn you again. Long story short, I won a lawsuit. Couldn't believe it. This organization was lying. I thought we were doing good. Went to work for another nonprofit eventually when I was out in LA. Two of them in the long run. And both of them lied to people. I couldn't believe it. And so I said, I'm done with this. And I stopped. Then I went to Virginia, hung out with my brother, and then Occupy Wall Street started. I said, that sounds exciting. What's going on there? As always, I was involved in this kind of stuff, and I went and checked it out. One thing leads to another, and then there I am telling people about what's going on. There's a lot more to the story, mind you, but I was deeply involved in politics. I've experienced the lies and the deception and the manipulations from the beginning. And I can tell you now, they're all lying to you. They're not misled. They know what they're doing. I was actually instructed by one nonprofit to lie to people on the street when I challenged the lies. As the story goes, Deepwater Horizon was a catastrophe. They gave us these sheets and said, we want to raise the issue with people and make sure they know what's going on. Go out and talk to them and fundraise. And then I had one guy tell me I was a liar. I read the script, I gave him the facts, and he said, no, that's not true. That's not how much oil is being spilled. It's way less than that. And I was like, and I look at my binder and I'm looking at the notes. I'm like, that's not what it says. He goes, you're lying to people for money. And then I said, look, man, if I'm wrong, I had no idea. This is what they told us. And I thought it was correct. We'll get it corrected. I'm sorry. And he goes, yeah, screw off. So I call up the office and say, hey, these facts are wrong. I'm getting yelled at. And they said, don't worry about it. Just keep reading it. No, I'm not going to give bad information to people. We need to do something about this. And they said, no, just keep reading it. I couldn't believe it. Wow. That was the game. They didn't care that they were lying to people. They wanted the money. So when I see these corrupt individuals, I don't think the answer is we must placate them and be nice to them because, they're just misled. No, they're lying on purpose. I've seen it my whole life. They're always lying for power. Now we can see the Democrats and the J6 committee withholding exculpatory evidence to lock a man up. The Q shaman being escorted by cops. What's the argument? Well, he had already broken in, so the cop said, well, I guess we can only aid and abet him. No, it makes no sense. So, leaving the Daily Wire. I think there's probably other reasons somebody might not want to work at the Daily Wire. My understanding of their environment is that they're a very traditional media company. The way they have restrictions on certain things, their contracts and all that stuff. You know what? Don't work for them then. That's fine. I think they do tremendous and great work. Jeremy's Chocolates. We ordered $2,000 worth of Jeremy's chocolate bars. It's probably just a private label chocolating service. The point is winning the culture war, building culture, supporting cultural endeavors. I view the Daily Wire as a more stodgy corporate entity. But that's fine. Every other media company is too. Timcast is quite not. We're a bit crazier. And that means we'll probably be substantially less successful than the Daily Wire. They have been growing at an exponential rate, and they've always been bigger than us, but growing way faster than we do. Ain't nothing I can do about it. I can only just be me and run the company. My birthday's coming up. If you want to give me a birthday present, become a member at timcast.com. Our membership growth is substantially lower and slower than Daily Wire's. Their business practices work. What they do works. And if in the end, the Daily Wire becomes the new Hollywood with traditional values and meritocracy at its core, we've won. And then we can argue about creativity and independence and all that stuff. Fine. But putting aside all of these business arguments, the reality is the Daily Wire does a tremendously powerful job that is good for all of us. And the reality is Matt Walsh is, I say, mostly correct. I'm not saying there's every circumstance you want to be a jerk to people, but you got to call out the bad people. You have to. And in that capacity, he is right. So, leaving the Daily Wire. Good luck. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 6. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see y'all then.